With U.S. for Undertow, I got interested in two things. One, the issue of credibility. What happens when no one believes you? So in some ways, U.S. for Undertow is the boy who cried wolf. The setup is that a kid comes into Kenzie's office. He says, I read an article, a sort of revamp of past kidnappings. There was a little girl named Mary Claire Fitzhugh, who was kidnapped in Santa Teresa in '67. He said, I read the article and boom, I remembered something that happened when I was 6. I think I saw 2 guys burying this kid. So Kenzie's job is to see if she can figure out where this hole is. You know, he does not remember where he was. Anyway, clever her, she gets into that and sure enough traces out the truth. The other thing that interested me was the notion of 2 kids, 18, money, bored, just out of high school, smoking dope, cooking up this scheme in 1967 that just has a tragic consequence. The 2 of them vow to keep silent. They never speak to each other again, and they think, you know, if we can just keep our mouths shut, we can get away with this. But because this kid remembers this one incident and goes to Kenzie Mulhone, the whole thing starts to unravel. We don't realize how inaccurate our memories are. We remember a story. We don't always remember what actually happened. And one of the things I'm dealing with in U.S. for Undertow is Kenzie's family history, which I introduced in J is for Judgment, thinking myself so clever. Half my readers love it, half are bored to tears. But the half that love it are writing me these letters. Would you get on with it? Would you tell us how this resolves itself? So I thought, you know, I really need to take care of that. So as a sort of B story or subplot, I hate the word plot, but narrative, I talk about Kenzie's discovery about what really went on in her childhood. I do think there is an advantage in dealing with the late 80s, and that is that without DNA, without sophisticated ballistics, without forensics at the state where it is now, Kenzie has to do old-fashioned gumshoe. She is an investigator. And the truth of the matter is that even the police, with all the advances they have at their disposal, it still takes a guy or a gal, somebody sitting down thinking about what's happened. So the information can be right in front of you. But if you don't have the ingenuity and the persistence to trace a crime back to its origin, it doesn't matter. So I like it that she has to do it the old-fashioned way. She goes to the public library, for heaven's sakes. I've noticed that everybody has a favorite book. Everybody has one they hate. I get letters from people saying, why can't she have another dress? Why can't she get a pet? You know, and it's like, why can't she eat better? Which I grant you she did in one of the books. But Kenzie is exactly what she is. She's flawed, she's inconsistent. And if I clean her up and, you know, get her a better haircut, it's not going to work anymore. So in some ways I have to tune that out. I have to just go about my business. With the journals that I keep, that's where I start the process. I believe I did it in a very rudimentary fashion in A is for Alibi, but as the years have passed, these journals, which I keep on the computer, a journal generally by the end of a book will be 395 single-spaced pages. The novel or the manuscript itself will be 515 double-spaced. So for everything I get on the manuscript page, I've gone through many a detour on the way. If I do a piece of research, I put it in the journal. If I have questions, I put them in the journal. If I'm feeling anxious, which is true every single day of my life, if I'm worried about the pace, if I'm worried about a maneuver, I write all that down, because my theory is that if I repress those emotions, if I pretend I'm always just fine, thank you, then I'll end up sabotaging my own work. So I try to own all my emotions and just lay them out. And what's interesting is that over the years, I still have all these journals. So if I'm in the middle of a book and I get scared, I can go back to any book I've written and see the same process. I'm bursting into tears over D is for Deadbeat. I'm anxious about H, you know, and And it reminds me that it is part of the process and that I need to trust the process, even as uncomfortable as it can be. I'm often asked if I am interested in selling the rights to film or TV on this character. And here's my sad tale of woe. I worked in Hollywood for 15 years. I hate those people. Most of the ones I met were just as nice. They were educated. They were gracious. They would savage your work. I did movies for television and pilots of one sort or another. And I know how that works. They always tell you they're absolutely crazy about your work. They're so thrilled. They'll give you all kinds of creative control. The minute the dollar changes hands, all the power shifts, and I'm not willing to give up my power. If they put Kenzie Mulholland on the screen, everybody would be upset. They would get it wrong. I don't know where the series is going to end, and I don't think I have to worry about it. It's going to take me another 10 years, so surely in that time something will occur to me. But people often ask me about Kenzie Mulholland. What will happen to her? I think, I don't know. I don't tell her. She tells me. And she gives me information on a need-to-know basis, and right now I don't need to know. She assures me. I read some mysteries. Often I can see what they're up to, so it's not that much fun for me. But I'm a big fan of Michael Connelly. I love his work. Robert Crace. The Brits, I like P.D. James and Ruth Rendell. Somebody just sent me a little advanced reading copy of hers, which I haven't had a chance to read yet. I'm always looking. Elmore Leonard, my all-time favorite, absolute all-time favorite. I like to watch the people who've been in business for a long time because I want to see how they're holding up. I figure anybody with longevity is of interest to me. My father wrote mystery fiction in the 40s, and I think he was a very clever man. I'm sorry he did not live long enough to come into this century with me, but watching his hard work and his dedication to the craft was a great influence on me. He taught me to take rejection. He taught me to understand the job of an editor and not be defensive or precious about my work. So that was valuable to me. Mostly he taught me that if I get knocked on my butt, I better just dust myself off and get back up again.